toxic masculinity.
Let's see here. Total nightmare. Biden policy redefining sex puts doctors at risk. I don't really know how it puts doctors at risk, I guess, of being sued. American Principles Project president says. Let's just go and read the story here. President Joe Biden's new policy redefining sex puts doctors at risk. American Principles Project President Terry Schilling told the Daily Caller News Foundation on Monday. The Biden administration announced Monday that it would interpret sex in the context of healthcare anti-discrimination laws to include sexual orientation and gender identity, reversing a Trump administration policy that defines sex as gender assigned at birth. This is ridiculous, you guys. Make no mistake, Schilling said. The policy announced by HHS is not about fixing a broken bone or screening for cancer risk. No American was being denied access to these treatments for identifying as LGBTQ. Rather, this policy is really about forcing hospitals and medical professionals to adhere to leftist ideology regarding sexuality and gender, and in particular to provide sex change procedures to all comers, including children. And that's another thing. Yeah, so there's this, I guess there's this idea on the left that, like, you know, everybody who wants a sex change should be able to get one, no matter if they're crazy or if they're like 6. And that's, of course, also completely insane. I mean, you're going to have a whole generation of people who deeply regret. I mean, I think we've all met people who regret their tattoos. Like, I know a guy who had full arm sleeves. His legs were totally tattooed everywhere, from top to bottom. And this is back in Portland, Oregon, where all the Antifa crap's going on. He might be one of them at this point. I don't know. Anyway, this guy was a good friend of mine once upon a time. And one thing I always thought was fascinating about this guy is that although he dressed like, essentially like you would imagine a normal Antifa type would, he really regretted his tattoos. And he basically had just come to terms with the fact that he made a horrible mistake, and now he looked, you know, he had these monstrous tattoos all the time. And he hated it, but he was like, you know, it is what it is. It's who I am now. But yeah, no, it was a mistake, you know. Imagine doing that after cutting off your penis. Well, what's the phrase? There's no coming back from that. I mean, I guess you can kind of try to have a new one sewed back on or something, but yeah, there's no coming back from that. You cut off your penis, that's that, you know, that's a lot of regret. I think that's the kind of thing that leads people to suicide. You know what I mean? I mean, to me, if you're cutting people's penises off and they're too young to know what they're doing, or they have some kind of mental illness, to me, that is medical malpractice. You should not be allowed to do that legally. In fact, I'm not even sure we should allow any kind of sexual reassignment surgery. I think sexual reassignment surgery is medical malpractice. That's what I think. At any time. Because I think anybody who wants some kind of gender reassignment surgery, they do have some kind of mental issue. And I think that needs to be dealt with, as opposed to just cutting off body parts or adding things. All right. Oh, you know what? I'm going to tweet that. Yeah, I'm going to tweet that. All gender reassignment surgery is medical malpractice. I'm going to tweet that. I think that's a good tweet. The Office for Civil Rights, OCR, will interpret Section 1557 and Title 9 prohibitions on discrimination based on sex to include discriminations on the basis of sexual orientation on the basis of gender identity. The Department of Health and Human Services announced in a memo released on Monday. The Supreme Court has made clear that people have a right not to be discriminated against on the basis of sex and receive equal treatment under the law, no matter their gender identity or sexual orientation. That's why today HHS announced, you do have a right to be discriminated against because of mental illness. You can actually discriminate against people for having a mental problem, right? If people are like, you know, violently insane, you probably don't want to work with them. You can discriminate for people for having mental problems, I think. Let's see here. Fear of discrimination can lead to individuals to forgo care, which can have serious negative health consequences, Becerra said. It is the position of the Department of Health and Services. I'm sure all the doctors in America are like, oh, you're trans? I'm not going to treat you. I don't like trans people, so not going to treat you. I'm pretty sure that's never happened in America ever. Not even back in the days when people thought transgender folks were crazy. Now they're all accepted, but I don't think that's ever happened. It's this bizarre thing where they're just like, but it might happen. We want to force doctors to treat trans patients, because they might someday say, I don't know. This whole thing is just so stupid. Anyway, all right, I'm going to move on to the next story because I think we've covered this, but your sex is your sex. Calling yourself a girl doesn't make you a girl. Calling yourself a boy doesn't make you a boy. Doctors have to know what's going on, right, in order to diagnose you and treat you properly. All right, well, let's move on to the next story, shall we? Let's see here. Baltimore prosecutor wants local news investigated because of Tucker Carlson. Yeah, this is weird. A lot of weird stories today. So let's get into this one. So this woman here, what's her name? Brendan Carr. No, that Brendan Carr is a senior Republican. Okay, that's not right.
Toxic Masculinity. Weekdays, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.